A couple of coaching announcements regarding the 2019 Minnesota Vikings. One coordinator is remaining, another is parting ways. We'll talk about that. This is Realistic Randy of the Mediokr Best Sports Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Let's start with the offensive coordinator position, in which Kevin Stefanski will be returning to this team, calling plays on the offense in 2019. And to that, I say I like it. I think the 3 games that he did last year where he was calling plays, and I think, let alone Kevin Stefanski, I think asking anybody, no matter how much knowledge you have in the game, I think asking anybody to come in mid-season and expecting a complete overhaul compared to what you had before is really a lot to ask. I thought the job that Kevin Stefanski did was pretty okay. It wasn't great. It wasn't underwhelming. I think there was the first drive in Chicago, if I'm not mistaken, Dalvin Cook didn't get a handoff at all. I was a little bit annoyed at that. But again, he's going to have a whole offseason to prepare now to make this his offense. If you remember in 2016 when Norv Turner left or got fired, no one will come clean with that whatsoever. Although he left due to personal reasons. All right, whatever, fine. When he left, it went from a 7-step drop back with Sam Bradford with a crappy offensive line to when Pat Shurmur came in. He was like, all right, let's see what we can do. All right, let's just get rid of the ball quick and let our playmakers get yards after the catch and see what happens. So that's what they did after that. And then in 2017, or the offense leading into 2017, Pat Shurmur had a whole offseason to prepare to make that his offense. And we saw the change, especially you beefed up the offensive line or made the offensive line better. Hint, hint, hint. Don't know why you didn't do that again for 2018, Rick Spielman. But you saw what happened with Sam Bradford. He came in for that Saints game, that first game of the year. Then he went down, and then he tailored the offense to Case Keenum. And we saw what happened. That's how he got that head coaching gig with the New York Giants now. Kevin Stefanski has been with this team since 2006. He knows this team. He knows these players. And he's been through, what, 3 head coaches at this point? Brad Childress, Leslie Frazier as the interim head coach, and now Mike Zimmer. He's seen different philosophies left and right. And I think with all that knowledge, I'm very excited to see what he's going to do. What's interesting is in his opening press conference, there was one quote that stuck out to me. He said, quote, "Just getting our best players in position to make plays is our league goal." Now, I don't know if that's a shot at John DeFilippo or whatever, but also I think it's really just getting back to the basics. This shouldn't be complicated math. This shouldn't be anything. This shouldn't be scientific at all. Get your best players the ball. Get Dalvin Cook the ball. That's a real criticism that we gave to John DeFilippo. He wasn't using Dalvin Cook that much. Or get the ball to Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen. Let these dudes make plays instead of trying to make this trigonometry type of offense. You don't need to do that. And once you do that, then you can open up everything else for the rest of your players. But Kevin Stefanski, did he really want to come back? That's the question that I have, because he was going for that Cleveland Browns head coaching position. He didn't get it, and I guess he was like, I guess I'll come back. But we'll see how this thing turns around. I think the offense is going to be a lot better because, you know, it's really a lot to ask for anybody to just come in with 3 games left in the season and to just have this quote, Brad Childress quote, kick-ass offense. I think you're going to have that next year in 2019. We'll just have to see. As far as the season goes for the Vikings, I'm really not sure, man. I'm not sure. I think the offense is going to be a lot better. I think the defense is still going to be very sound. But then I took a look. I actually took a look at these opponents that the Vikings are going to have going into next year. Now, they didn't beat a team with a winning record at all in 2018. This year, or the upcoming season, 2019, they've got 7 games against teams that went to the playoffs in 2018. So they either went to the playoffs or they're still in the playoffs right now. So obviously 2 of those 7 games, that's going to be Chicago. You play Chicago twice. Then you've got Philly, you've got Dallas, you got the LA Chargers, you've got the Kansas City Chiefs, and you've got the Seattle Seahawks. So that's going to be a real test. So you've got 7 games against real teams. As far as any of the other teams with winning record, I didn't really look that far into it. I was just looking at playoff teams. But that's going to be a really, really tough schedule. We'll see how they do. Can they turn around? I have no idea. Apparently, Mike Zimmer in his season-ending press conference, he was asked about that. You know, what happened? And he was like, I don't know if we have that spark. And he was asked, what are you going to do to get that spark back? And Mike Zimmer said,
You say you're going to get it back. How do you get it back?
I've got a plan.
Care to share?
No.
I've got a plan. I've got a plan. That's what he said. How are you going to get it back, Mike Zimmer? How are you going to get it back, Coach? I've got a plan. Oh, really? And then the reporter went on to say, well, what plan is that? Do you care to divulge? Do you care to share? And he said, no. I think it's just really interesting. This dude, Mike Zimmer, has a plan. A couple of days after the season ended, he already has a master plan to turn this thing around. But you had a whole week to plan for the Chicago Bears, and your execution or your game plan could not be executed on the field. But all of a sudden, a couple of days after the season ends, oh, what are you going to do? Oh, I've got a plan. Don't worry about it. All right, lip service. But anyway, moving forward from that, the other coordinator announcement for this team, special teams coordinator, Mike Priefer. Mike Priefer is joining the Cleveland Browns. Now, the Vikings, they did offer him a contract. They did. So this whole idea that, oh, we just wanted to get rid of him anyway. Well, it was reported the Vikings, they wanted to keep him anyway. And they actually offered him a contract, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and I apologize if I'm wrong. I know it was by one of you guys. I'm pretty sure it was Tom Pelissero on Twitter that announced it, and he had a couple of interviews or offers from elsewhere. Mike Priefer did, but the Vikings did offer him a contract. And what's crazy is I think there was just too many blunders on the special team. That situation where I think his name is Matt Wild, a placeholder that came out of 4 weeks left into the season or whatever that was. I don't know if it was against the Patriots or Seattle, whatever that was, where he was the last man to get out on the field for a field goal. And by the time he got out onto the field, there was 10 seconds left. And then Dan Bailey ultimately missed that kick. I'm like, what are you doing? But there's just been so many blunders. And now the game is to the point where there's not even kickoffs anymore. Every kickoff you're doing is going to be a touchback anyway. So basically all you need to really focus on, or not even all you need to focus on, but all that you're going to be really, really judged on are punts and field goals. And punts is like, okay, your punt coverage and everything like that. I think the only thing that saved Mike Priefer was Marcus Sherrills. And I'm having a little bit of question as far as whether he had much to do with anything as far as how good Marcus Sherrills has been, to where he's basically been maybe saving his ass, because the rest of everything else on the special teams has been garbage. Every kicker we've had, basically every single kicker we've had, and I'm still ticked off that we let go Ryan Longwell in favor of Blair Walsh. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Like, I'm still heated to this day about that. But every kicker that we've had under this dude has been shaky, has been super shaky. Dan Bailey went from one of the most accurate kickers in the league. When we signed him, I was like, oh, sweet, we good. It's all good. And he was struggling. I think maybe with a new special teams coordinator, if we do bring him back, he'll be fine. But it's just crazy. Daniel Carlson, Kai Forbath was the one dude that was mentally tough to, you know what? He could miss a kick here, but he would make the next one. The rest of the kickers is like, if they miss it, Dan Bailey was kind of, he was kind of 50-50. But the rest of the kickers is like, if they missed a kick, they were done for the rest of the day. And I'm not sitting here, and I'm not going to blame Mike Priefer for Blair Walsh. Blair Walsh could have maybe done better under Mike Priefer. But I think he had his own special case of problems, because he went to Seattle. It was still a head case over there. He still couldn't make kicks worth a damn. But Daniel Carlson, you go from a situation, I think a lot of it is on Mike Priefer. I think a lot of it, too, is based on the fact that this team has super high expectations, and you're just throwing a rookie into the fire. You're cutting Kai Forbath and letting him know, you're the guy, Daniel Carlson, and he couldn't make anything. Then he goes to the Oakland Raiders, where there's absolutely no pressure. He makes basically all his kicks, and he looks great. Mike Priefer, your kickers stink under you. Something needs to be changed. And now that he's going to Cleveland, I say good riddance. Now, besides that, moving forward from that, a couple of things I want to add. I'm not the guy that's just going to force Vikings topics if there's not really nothing to do, especially during the offseason, where, look out now, coming up next is the offensive line report. We're going to give draft grades on college offensive linemen. Like, I don't know, man. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm watching these offensive linemen snaps in college football. I'm sure once the mock draft comes out, I'll take a look at different players, who gets the top grades, and I'll take a look at a couple of their maybe highlight tapes and stuff like that. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to force topics. So I used to do this segment last year or the year before last. This is year 3 now, going into year 4 of this podcast. Thank you for the support. But I used to give this segment called Elsewhere in Sports, where I talk about other stuff that's going on in the news. So we got this kid, Kyler Murray. Heisman winner out of Oklahoma, quarterback there. He lost to Alabama in the playoffs before Alabama ultimately lost to the Clemson Tigers. By the way, speaking of the Clemson Tigers, If the Vikings do suck next year and they don't make the playoffs, I'm not going to sit here and make a prediction now because obviously the draft needs to happen. Free agency needs to happen to basically get an idea of who these teams are going to be. But if we don't make the playoffs next year, I will say Mike Zimmer should come back for that final year of Kirk Cousins' contract. Don't invest in the offensive line. Get a cornerback in the first round again, going into 2020, whatever that year is going to be. And don't do anything and tank for Trevor Lawrence, damn it. But anyway, that's getting a little bit too far ahead of myself. Kyler Murray, Heisman winner, quarterback from Oklahoma. He's now reportedly expected to enter the 2019 NFL draft. What's crazy is before this previous college football season, he got drafted and signed with the Oakland Athletics. So apparently this dude is a two-sport athlete, a phenom. Good for him. And I remember when this story first broke, not that he's expected to go to the draft, but once it was announced that he's going to play for Oklahoma and the Oakland A's, they was like, yeah, go ahead and play for Oklahoma. I said to myself, and I think I posted this on Facebook and Twitter, I said, yo, I would go to the Oakland A's. Play at Oklahoma, do your year there, okay, fine. I would report to the Oakland A's after this season is done. Oh, if that was me, that dude, baseball money is GOAT. Let that be my son. Or let that be me. Like, what are you choosing between? A completely guaranteed contract in which even if you're making quarterback money at the NFL level, if you're really good in baseball, you can make that same amount, if not more, in baseball for a longer period of time and for as far as a stronger body of work, not a stronger body of work, but your health will be more intact compared to football where you get knocked upside your head every other play. And that's just me because the NFL, because in baseball, let's say you get hurt or you have a couple of down years, your contract is still your contract. In the NFL, if you get hurt or you have one bad year or maybe even a year and a half of just poor performance, that NFL team will cut you and you will get a fraction, if anything, of the remaining money you have left on your contract. The NFL is ruthless. This isn't even a discussion for me. Baseball. I'd be reporting to the Oakland A's right now. Say, what do you want me? You want me to work on my batting practice? Whatever it is. But anyway, he's expected to enter the 2019 NFL draft. It's a free country. Do whatever it is you want. That's what everybody has the right to do, whatever it is that they want to do. Now, this former SB Nation reporter for the A's, I don't know if she writes for the A's or used to. She's fired now. They parted ways with her since. Jen Rainwater wrote a couple of tweets after it was announced that he's going to enter the NFL draft. Now, remind you, she used to cover the Oakland A's. She said on Twitter, quote, and she tagged him too. Quote, you aren't going to be great in the NFL. And to think many of us were rooting for you. You're just a stupid, selfish baby and brat. I never, all caps, I never say this, but I won't care a bit when you suck or critically injured in your rookie NFL season. She puts the middle finger emoji up. In fact, I will likely tweet and put a thread up. I will likely tweet directly to you just to laugh and say, so many people, myself included, and I'm no former NFL QB or anything, told you so. I can't wait to see your dumb ass go down in flames. It's only a short matter of time. Oh, and NFL contracts aren't guaranteed. What the hell is that girl's problem? Yo, you know what's funny? Like, I'm not gonna pile on to this girl so much because, you know what? All jokes aside, That girl needs some help. She really, really needs some help. Sports is never that serious. I know I go off and I can have my tangent. I can have my rants every once in a while or maybe more often than not. But it's strictly to sports. It's strictly to what they're doing, their performance or whatever. I make it my business to never make it personal and wish any harm on them, whether it's, personally or injured or like you should never do that. That's just great. And the fact that it got to her, it kind of just took it personal for her. That was just crazy to see. But as far as me, if I was this dude's dad, Kyler Murray, I'd be like, yo, go to baseball. You really, really need to go. I'll put together this PowerPoint presentation, but he's going to make his own decision, and you got to live with it. And if you're a fan, forget just beat writers or whatever. If you're a fan and you've got a star player that's either going to come to your team or they're on your team, you got to set a little bit, maybe 5% in your mind to when, hey, they may leave and it's going to suck. I'm a Washington Nationals fan. I'm expecting Bryce Harper to not be back on this team. You know what I chalk it up to? He gave us several great years. He did the best he could in the playoffs. The Nationals could never win a playoff series, but he did the best he could. In my humble opinion, I wish him all the best. Luka Doncic, I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan. We're going to talk about him in just a second. And that game with the Minnesota Timberwolves, you see that back there with Dirk Nowitzki, okay? Luka Doncic, he's going to be Rookie of the Year, no question about it. But I got to mentally prepare because these athletes, these pro athletes are unpredictable. Whereas Kyler Murray, to me, the most wise thing to do is to go to baseball. But to him, he's like, hey, maybe I want to go to football instead. They are so unpredictable. They're going to go left when you expect them to go right. But you have to expect that. It's sports, man. It should never be that serious. It should never be that. I understand the passion. I've got a lot of passion for the teams that I root for, but it should never be that serious. Now moving forward from that, playoff predictions. Before we get into Wolves Mavericks talk, and then actually just a brief talk about Wolves and OKC talk. Ryan Saunders, how is he doing as a coach? We're going to do playoff predictions. So this weekend, we've got, 4 games? 4 games. First, we're going to start with the Colts. I'm going to make my predictions for each one. This first one, I have absolutely no conviction on. I'm really just going to go, it's like a 50-50 toss-up for me, but I have no conviction in this one. Colts versus Chiefs. Now, what's interesting is the Colts, they've won 10 out of their last 11. They're a super tough team. Their identity is completely changed. They used to be really soft on defense. Their defense is really, really good now, and they got a really good offensive line. Did you see that Colts-Texans game last week? This dude, Andrew Luck, had all sorts of time to make the throw. And the Houston Texans, their defensive line is really, really good. But Andrew Luck was just sitting there, boom, 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 had all the time in the world to make throws. And the Chiefs' defense isn't really good. And I wonder, I know Andy Reid, he's had his problems in the playoffs. Now, I know with the Eagles, he went to the NFC Championship game, 4 times and then went to a Super Bowl once. But I know he's had his struggles in the playoffs too. I think it's going to be a really close one, and I think the defense is going to make things tough to where Patrick Mahomes is going to have to make some plays. But I think the coverage on these playmakers is going to be really tough. Travis Kelce may be the X factor in this game. I'm going to go Colts in a slight edge, but again, no conviction in that game. The rest of these games, I feel really, really good about. Cowboys versus Rams. I'm going to go with the Cowboys in this game, man. Jared Goff, the last couple of weeks, he has struggled. And in the playoffs, they were one and done last year. And the Cowboys, they're on a roll. They're on a roll. Their defense is supremely underrated. Now, if Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh and the defense of the LA Rams, which isn't really good at all, if they can try, really it's going to be on Aaron Donald, who's probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year. If he can hold Ezekiel Elliott in check, then I think you're going to have to force Dak Prescott to beat you with his arm. I don't think he can do that, but I think Jared Goff is going to struggle in this too because now the stage is bigger now. In the last couple of weeks, it's been really tough. I expect the defensive line to perhaps not hold Todd Gurley in check, but I think they're going to make things really difficult for him. But if the Cowboys can utilize that edge rushing with Ezekiel Elliott to avoid going up the gut and avoiding Aaron Donald, I think they're going to have a chance. I think the Cowboys are going to win this game in LA. After that, you've got Chargers versus Patriots. Now, if you want to talk about Vikings of the AFC, it's the LA Chargers, man. I lived in San Diego for, 4 years, and I had front row seats to them. All the choke jobs that they've had when they go into the playoffs, they have, just like the Vikings, high expectations, a lot of talent. It's like, oh, this might be the year they might make something. They may not win a Super Bowl, but they're going to make something happen, and they usually fall apart. Now, last week, they almost did. They almost fell apart against the Baltimore Ravens, but they luckily squeaked that one out. Now, you could think that to maybe Lamar Jackson not figuring it out until it was a little bit too late, too close to call. But they're going to Foxborough, man. Until the Patriots lose, I'll believe it when I see it. But again, the Chargers, I think Phillip Rivers, he's a little bit erratic. I think he's been very underrated. He's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback, or he is a Hall of Fame quarterback. He is going to be a Hall of Famer. I think he's been really underrated, but he's very erratic, and I think the coaching of Bill Belichick may overrule that. So, I don't know. I think the Patriots, they're going to win that one. It's in Foxborough. I'll believe it when I see it otherwise. The last game, Eagles-Saints, I feel very good about this. I'm going with the Philadelphia Eagles, man. The Saints offense, they're not as high-flying or high-octane as they have been in a couple of years past. And the Eagles, I don't know what it is with this dude, Nick Foles and Doug Peterson. They just meshed together, and I would seriously consider moving forward with Nick Foles as the franchise quarterback ahead of Carson Wentz. But I think the toughness, the defense is back now. Now, there's a guy, I don't know the guy's name. I think his number is 29 on the Eagles defensive back. This dude was getting lit up by Mitch Trubisky last week against the Chicago Bears. So maybe Drew Brees, he's been watching film. I'm sure he has, and Sean Payton has as well. Maybe they'll target him, line up Michael Thomas. Is his last name Mitchell? I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me. But anyway, maybe they're going to target him a little bit more. But I think the toughness of the Eagles will prevail. Fletcher Cox and that company, that defensive line, Brandon Graham, they're going to go after Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram and make things very interesting for that Saints offense. I know it's in the Superdome, but the only team in these playoffs that I can see, as far as in the NFC is concerned, that's left in the NFC that can go out into the Superdome and make something happen is the Eagles. If anybody's going to beat them, it's them. I think the Eagles are going to win. Quite frankly, I think it's going to be Eagles-Patriots again in the Super Bowl. I think it's going to be a repeat, but I think they're going to beat the Saints. So those are my predictions for this weekend. Hopefully I don't look too much like a dumbass. But anyway, moving forward now, Timberwolves talk. Ryan Saunders, how has he been doing? Now, real quick in that OKC game, I'm not falling for the Andrew Wiggins trap. I'm not doing it. He had a great game. He had a masterful game. He was aggressive. There was one play in which Paul George, he attacked the basket, and then immediately after that, and then he made the layup. Immediately after that, Andrew Wiggins got the ball and fought through contact and attacked the basket as well and made a layup to respond. That's what you – and I'm talking about he was sharp with his movements. He was actually on it. He wasn't just laissez-faire with it. He was moving with a purpose. And when you see that with Andrew Wiggins, this dude can be a really, really great player. But I'm not falling for the trap. I'm not doing it because we see this once out of every 10 games and we're like, oh, is this it? Is this where he's going to return? This is it. He's found it, baby. And then he just falls apart. Speaking of which, speaking of that sound effect, going back to Mike Priefer, you want to talk about the kickers? The kickers under Mike Priefer have been – now, anyway, moving forward from that, going back to Andrew Wiggins and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, moving forward from that, they just went up against my Dallas Mavericks. Now, you know what's interesting? When I first started this podcast, maybe it's still in the archive somewhere in YouTube, but I used to do a Vikings segment and I used to do a Mavericks segment. And then after a while, I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, why am I doing these two? Neither fan base cares about the other team. So, like, why am I doing? So I chose to just cover Minnesota sports, but I do care. The energy and the passion that I have for the Vikings is equal. I match that same energy when it comes to those Dallas Mavericks. So I elected not to talk about them. It didn't make sense for you guys. You guys don't really care to listen to them, and rightfully so. But now I have a reason to talk about them. But against this team, let me just get a couple of things out the way. In regards to the Timberwolves, I love the energy, man. Target Center was rocking. And what's interesting is I'm a little bit upset because, not at the fans or anything, but just for me, I'm upset at myself just because of my situation. In order to watch Wolves games, I can never really watch it in real time because I'm usually at work or I'm driving from work to back to the house. But I've got League Pass. So basically, after you guys have really seen it, unless it's on the weekend, after you guys have already seen the games, I'm coming back home and then I'm watching it on League Pass that night or the next day or whatever it is. So anyway, I got back home to watch the last 35 seconds of that game, and before Luka hit that three, and then it was like a little bit of a brain fart by Dario Saric and Derrick Rose, where they could have tied or maybe taken the lead late in that game to maybe win the game. And then I watched the rest of that game later on last night, and I was just saying to myself, the energy in that arena was crazy. It's something about culture, man. And it's not to be cliche, but that's a real thing. Think about any jobs that you've had. I've had some terrible employers, some terrible just toxic type of supervisors and managers to where I'm like, oh my God, I can do my job. I can do it, but I'm literally going to come in, clock out, and go home. But whenever I have to have a one-on-one meeting with you or him or her, or whether it's we're having a collective meeting and I got to sit there and listen to this person talk for like an hour and just berate me over and over, it's like you can compartmentalize. We're like, all right, fine, whatever, just say whatever you want. And meanwhile, I'm thinking about sports or some other game that I watch, or thinking about what I'm going to do after I leave this meeting or what I'm going to have for lunch. And then you can still do your job, but it's not something it's not a place that you want to go to. That was the case with Tom Thibodeau. Jim Pete went off as far as the environment that he created in Target Center. And I think now with Ryan Saunders, where he talked to every player individually, he basically propped them up. Because with guys like Taj Gibson and Derrick Rose, and even with Jimmy Butler before he left, those guys can handle the shouting and the berating. Those guys can handle that. For the rest of the team, they need a different type of approach. And Ryan Saunders is a breath of fresh air. And I think you felt that in that arena. Look, the Wolves, they were down at one point to start the second half, I believe, by 13 points. They went on a 13-0 run, and they tied the game back up. Then later on, they were down by like 8. They went on an 8-0 run, I believe, to tie the game back up. So they kept fighting, man. And you know what's crazy? They didn't look out of sorts. They didn't look like beaten down during the process. They were energetic the whole time. And those fans, man, you guys were amazing out there. They were like, defense. And man, it felt like the Chesapeake Arena, Chesapeake Energy Arena where the OKC Thunder play? It felt like Oracle. Now, this is just me watching through my TV screen with my surround sound speakers on. But it felt like that. That was really good. And when the players with the coaching, when you combine the energy of the fans with the coaching, I think this team, they're fun to watch. These last 2 games, they have been fun to watch, and that is so beautiful to see. Now, having said that, a couple of things. Karl-Anthony Towns, man. You know what's crazy? This dude's a great player, but for the life of me, his stature, the way he goes about his movements, it's kind of like clumsy looking, and he looks like he has no business doing the types of things that he's able to do. Like his jump shot, normally they're like keep your hips square and, you know, lift with your knees and like go down, do a power lift with your knees, jump into the air and guide your hands with that with your release after that to make the shot. This dude, Karl-Anthony Towns, basically does a hop skip. He basically just raises up to his toes to the balls of his feet before releasing that shot. But he's so good at shooting that it's like, okay, do whatever you want. And then he's got such great touch around the basket. Soft hands. And then he can move like a guard. He can drive to the basket. Put it to you like this. Max Kleber on the Dallas Mavericks. I love Max Kleber. I think he's a really good defensive presence. I think he's going to be good as far as to fill in for Dirk Nowitzki. Not say he's like Dirk Nowitzki, but to fill in at that 4 spot for when Dirk Nowitzki really needs to retire. It's really hard to watch at this point. By the way, Wolves fans, maybe at some point down the road we'll have this conversation, but I don't think you'll be too happy with the Dirk to KG comparisons that I have for y'all. But anyway, that's a whole nother story for a whole different time. But I think Max Kleber is a really good defender. This dude, Karl-Anthony Towns, made Max Kleber look like a preschooler out there. Drove to the basket on him. There was one, I think this was on Max Kleber too, where he basically moved like a guard and he shifted the ball from his right or his left to his right hand and moved to the basket like a guard and just hit the basket with an easy layup. And then another move, I know this was on Max Kleber. Max Kleber had him on the post. And then Karl-Anthony Towns drove to the basket underneath the hoop and did a reverse slam. And there's nothing you could do. Karl-Anthony Towns is amazing, man. This dude finished 12 of 21 for 30 points. He had 30 points, 11 boards, 2 assists, and 4 blocks, man. This dude is getting better and better. And with a guy like Ryan Saunders, I wouldn't write this dude off as far as, oh, he's just a one-and-done type of coach. If you can get butts in that seats, and I know that's like the second thing you want to do, you want to have a team that's winning. Because winning will bring butts in the seat by pattern, by virtue, by, I don't know, elimination, whatever it is. But, hey, with a coach like Ryan Saunders, Cat can thrive, man. And now, clearly, this is his team. He's looked really, really good. Obviously, you need Rocco to come back, but it is what it is. But Luka Doncic, Rookie of the Year, damn it. And you know what's crazy? These super analytical guys, they come out there and they say, oh, Trae Young and all that. By the way, the Atlanta Hawks, I'm sure they've got to be throwing up every single day that they see this dude, Luka Doncic. I am on record before the draft. Before the draft, I was saying on Twitter and Facebook, I want the Euro. I want the Euro. I don't care about advanced analytics. You know why I wanted Luka Doncic? Why I wanted the Euro? Because I don't blame the Phoenix Suns for taking DeAndre Ayton. I think he was the consensus #1 pick at the time. But if you had to redo it over, clearly it's Luka Doncic. But the reason why I wanted him is because he's a 6'8" playmaker who can shoot. Enough said, bro. And you know what's crazy? In this league, in this era of the NBA, athleticism, it's like if you have that, that's all fine. But it's all about skill. It's all about fundamentals. It's all about being the best that you can at fundamentals because everything else will fall into place. Klay Thompson even said this during some press conference or some sort of event where he was giving homage to a former coach of his, where I think high school or college, he was like, man, you know, I just wanted to hoop, but this coach, he just wanted us to work on fundamentals and just catch and shoot and dribbles and making passes and all this stuff. And he's like, what are you doing? I just want to shoot. And he said, now I'm in the NBA, and Steve Kerr makes me do the same thing. And that's what makes the Warriors so great, fundamentals. Steph Curry, could he survive back in the 90s when it was tough for defense and back when athleticism thrived? I don't know, probably not. He may have gotten shut down, but the rules and the league rules are what they are, and fundamentals are what they are. These Euro players, they're thriving now. Nikola Vucevic, Luka Doncic, you're seeing these guys, you're seeing these people out there thrive out there. So the Euros, they're not necessarily soft anymore. They're perfect for today's NBA. And I completely agree with Mark Cuban's stance a couple of weeks ago where he said, guys in the AAU, they're out there trying to put out mixtapes. And compared to the Euros, they're just working on fundamentals, and that's why they're thriving. I completely agree. So as long as you see that in the domestic U.S., if you see that more, I think you'll see more talent come out instead of these guys that are just super athletic. They go to college for a year, they're dunking on everybody, and then they come to the NBA, and they struggle for a little bit. So we'll have to see. But anyway, Luka Doncic, man. This dude, the Wolves, they were up by 1 point, I believe, 114 to 115. Wolves were up. And Luka Doncic inbounded the ball to, I think it was Max Kleber. Taj Gibson with the steal, passed it to Josh Okogie, and it was kind of like a fast break a little bit, Josh Okogie and Taj Gibson. And Max Kleber did a fantastic job because Josh Okogie could have maybe driven to the basket. Maybe it's a little bit rookie nerves or something. But Max Kleber did a great job basically forcing Josh Okogie to go out a little bit more in space, forcing him to pass the ball to Taj Gibson. DeAndre Jordan followed up, stole the ball, gave it to Luka Doncic, and this dude, Luka Doncic, walked up to the three-point line with Cat on him. Cat was kind of like, all right, what are you going to do? And Luka's got that killer instinct, bro. Launched that three. Bam! So, my goodness, that was so good to watch. I was like, it's crazy. It's hard because normally any Wolves game I'm watching, I'm like, okay, what are the Wolves doing? This game, because it's my team that they're playing, I'm like, man, what is this dude Josh Okogie doing? I'm like, man, I actually like this dude. Why am I sitting here talking smack about this dude? But anyway, he's a really good player. But Luka Doncic, he's got that killer instinct, dog. But, it's crazy. They were up 117 to 115. And I think that next possession, they had a chance to tie or take the lead in that game. It was like 30 seconds left. It wasn't much time left. But anyway, Jeff Teague inbounded the ball to Cat. Cat gave it back to Jeff Teague. Jeff Teague did a really good job driving to the basket, kicked it out to Dario Saric, and Dario Saric had a wide open three, and he deferred immediately. It wasn't even like a hesitation. It was like, no, I'm passing this ball no matter what. He already made up in his mind to pass the damn ball with a wide open. I've been supporting Dario Saric a lot, but that was really weak, man. He's a good three-point shooter. I don't know why he got it and just immediately said, I don't want it, and gave it to Derrick Rose. And then Derrick Rose, I guess maybe he was thrown off a little bit by getting the ball back, but he hesitated a little bit, then elected to drive to the basket and made like a tough pass in traffic to Cat, and they got stolen. And after that, the game was over. The game was over after that. But you know what? They fought hard, man. That Wolves team, that was respect. I give respect out to those guys. The fans, they were great. I think Ryan Saunders did a great job. The team fought back no matter how far they were behind. Because don't get it twisted. The Mavericks, they've been struggling too. They've lost coming into that game. They lost, 3 out of their last 4 games heading into that Wolves game at Target Center. So that, they were looking for the groove back too. But Luka Doncic is a really good player, man. But I think this team has something special. I'm actually excited to watch the rest of these games because with Tibbs, I'm like, whatever. Like, this is going to be a drag. How stressful is this going to be? But now this is like really fun to watch. So I'm proud of the Wolves. They lost to what it will be a superstar in this league, and he should be a damn all-star, damn it. Luka Doncic, he better be an all-star. So anyway, we do this. Oh, and by the way, one more point. Andrew Wiggins and Harrison Barnes, you notice something? They're the same player, bro. They're the same. They both take stupid shots. And in that OKC Thunder game, he was really, really good. He did a lot of playmaking abilities, or he showed a lot of playmaking abilities, getting the ball, passing the ball out, driving to the basket, moving with a purpose. But a lot of times he was taking stupid shots like he normally does. The difference was in that OKC game, he was making shots. He was actually making some of those stupid shots. But Harrison Barnes and Andrew Wiggins, they are literally the same player. And just how some fans are agitated with Wolves fans are agitated with Andrew Wiggins, I'm super irritated with Harrison Barnes, man. I want this dude gone so fast. But anyway, I'm so excited to see what the Wolves do for the rest of this season. They've got something to build upon. So anyway, we do this twice a week. Mediokr Best Sports Podcast with Realistic Randy. You can catch the show on YouTube, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, whatever. Facebook at Realistic Randy. Twitter at Realistic_Randy. We'll see you on Tuesday.